Hello again. Now let's focus on the breaking international news story this afternoon. Rishi Sunak has been elected as the leader of the Conservative Party in the UK. This will pave way for him to be elected the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom following the resignation of Prime Minister Liz Truss last week, after a tumultuous time in office which lasted a mere 44 days. Well, let's get the latest now. Speak to our correspondent in London, Olly Barrett. Olly, good afternoon. Welcome to today. Well, it is the big news in terms of the UK, but also globally. We've been watching to see who will be next. Rishi Sunak is the man.
He is indeed. We knew that it was going to be either Rishi Sunak or Penny Mordaunt. She was the only person left in the race overnight. But in the last half hour, she's also had to effectively drop out of it too, partly because she couldn't secure enough nominations from fellow Conservative MPs, lawmakers, to get into the race itself, which would have kicked off this afternoon. So that left Rishi Sunak as the only candidate left standing. He therefore, as you say, becomes the next leader of the Conservative Party and will become the next UK Prime Minister in the hours ahead. Penny Mordaunt, who's a current member of the Cabinet and has been before that a Defence Minister, was felt by some of her backers to be a good unity or centrist candidate for the Conservative Party, but she just couldn't secure enough backing to get into the race. Rishi Sunak was in the end miles ahead of her.
He's going to be Britain's first ethnic minority Prime Minister. Will this matter at all?
Well, I think people are welcoming that as a significant moment. As you say, the first British Asian Prime Minister. He is also a very young Prime Minister, much younger than me, probably not as young as you, Dan. He's 42 years old, and he gets into office at a very difficult time when many in his party were looking for a candidate with experience, particularly when it comes to financial markets, and he does have some of that. And you'll remember that he was also the candidate in the previous race against Liz Truss, and he lost against Liz Truss. But during that race, when Liz Truss was setting out her economic plans of swathes of tax cuts, he was insistent at the time that if she went ahead with a plan like that, that the pound would come under pressure, UK borrowing costs would spike, that the markets simply wouldn't wear a tax-cutting programme of unfunded tax cuts and therefore further borrowing at a time when the UK's national debt is in a very elevated position. He has been proved right, really, with all of that, and so this time around, many Conservative MPs feel that he is the right candidate for this particular moment. And yes, a lot of people are remarking on the fact that he is the first British Asian Prime Minister, and the fact that the new Prime Minister does come from a minority is something that's really being welcomed across the political spectrum, actually, even by some of Rishi Sunak's political opponents.
But there'll be no honeymoon for him. From what you've just said there, Olly, I mean, the country's economy has been in turmoil. Liz Truss's decisions made it worse recently. So he's going to have to literally hit the ground running and reassure the markets about the way forward.
Absolutely, and the early signs are that actually financial markets are reassured just by the fact that he's got into the job. The pound has been strengthening, UK borrowing costs have been coming down a touch on international markets, but as you suggest, he now actually has to put a full plan in place. We're expecting that that will still happen at the end of this month, and the reason for that that we expect to see that plan on the 31st of October is that that's the date that was announced by the current Chancellor, Jeremy Hunt, who may well stay in the job under a Rishi Sunak premiership, but also because the Bank of England sets its next interest rates on November the 3rd, and it is something that the Treasury wants to get done before that Bank of England meeting so that there is clarity about the future direction of the economy, about things like possible spending cuts and the ability to reassure financial markets again as quickly as possible. So it's really a huge task for Rishi Sunak now, a very, very difficult in-tray. It's not just the economic crisis he has to deal with. There is a war on the continent of Europe, discussions here in Europe just in the last 24 hours about whether a dirty bomb is about to be used in the conflict in Ukraine. So some really difficult challenges ahead for him, but the economy is absolutely going to be at the top of his list.
Yeah, I just want to focus a little little bit on the party itself. I mean, you've said, of course, it's the first time that Britain is going to have a Prime Minister of Asian descent. But I understand he's also the youngest UK Prime Minister in more than 200 years. But recently he lost to Liz Truss in the race to head up the Conservative Party. He's now got that. Can he reunite a party that seemingly has been deeply divided recently?
That's, again, a very difficult task indeed for Rishi Sunak. The party has, as you say, looked divided. At times it's looked completely unmanageable in recent months. You have all these different wings of the party, different factions that want different things, and so it won't be possible for Rishi Sunak to satisfy all of those wings of the party all of the time. That said, there is also the knowledge from Conservative MPs that they are absolutely miles behind the opposition Labour Party in the polls. And if they want to avoid complete wipeout at the next general election, the party is going to have to unite behind Rishi Sunak and let him provide a period of stability, because there is a clear sense that the electorate is getting mightily fed up with all of this chaos at the top of the UK Conservative Party and therefore UK political life. And so that's one of the jobs that Rishi Sunak has to do, to try and show that he can manage the Conservative Party. He will have a huge majority in Parliament, so if he can unite the party, there is upside for him as well, in the sense that he should be able to get legislation through the House of Commons behind me because of that majority that Boris Johnson delivered back in 2019.
Yeah, he seems to be confident, Olly. From the early remarks I've seen, that he said he can reunite the party, he can fix the economy, and he can deliver for the country. I guess only time will tell. We'll have to wait then for him to meet the King, as it is tradition. When is that expected, Olly?
That could happen this afternoon or this evening, or it probably more likely now to happen tomorrow. We understand that the King is coming back to London. He's been at his Sandringham estate, and we think that he's expected back at the palace later this afternoon or this evening UK time. So it may well be that all the choreography takes place on Tuesday. You remember that last time this happened, just a few weeks ago, it was with Queen Elizabeth II, who was still alive at that point. Liz Truss had to go to Balmoral, Boris Johnson resigned, and then Liz Truss was asked to form a government by the Queen. And the same happens this time. It'll be at Buckingham Palace, so with King Charles III. Liz Truss will go there, formally hand in her resignation to the monarch, and then the King will ask Rishi Sunak after that to form a government. And then we expect to see Rishi Sunak coming back to Downing words on the steps of Number 10, as is the tradition, on his way in to get on with his new job.